NFL team betting previews 2024-2025 season. We are talking the Buffalo Bills, a team that has just dominated their division and is going for their fifth straight division title. Buffalo is 19-5 in division games the last 4 years, so it makes sense they're favorites to win the AFC East division this year, despite losing some key players. Bills have lost 7 players this offseason that played at least 50% of snaps last year. On defense, the big losses are Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Trey White, the team sack leader, and Leonard Floyd. They also just lost Matt Milano for the season with the bicep tear. That's a tough one there, but the secondary should be all right. Returning Rasul Douglas, Taron Johnson, and Benford, all of them ranked inside Pro Football Focus's top 30 in coverage grades. Not sure if they will be a top 10 unit defensively to start the season, but definitely has top 10 unit upside. On the offense, the big news is the loss of Steph Diggs and Gabe Davis, which I think seeing them go isn't as bad as most people think. I mean, Diggs didn't even have a game where he gained over 87 yards from week 6 on, ranking Diggs 51st among wide receivers in yards per route ran during that stretch. That production is definitely replaceable. Khalil Shakir, or Shakir, I should say, who is going to have a bigger role this season, ranked 32 in yards per route ran in that same stretch. Shakir generated the same number of 20-plus yard receptions as Diggs and only 2 fewer than Gabe Davis, and he did so on half the targets. I think a change was necessary. Bills' pass offense somehow ranked 22nd in explosive pass rate last season, so something had to be done. What good is it to have a big armed quarterback like Josh Allen if you're not even going to use it to push the ball downfield? I like the group of pass catchers for Buffalo: Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir. They drafted rookie Keon Coleman from Florida State. I like big receivers. They have who I think might be the best tight end in football with Dalton Kincaid. I'll be betting a ton of his overs this year. Now, the Bills came into the preseason with plans of figuring out or establishing their wide receiver group and planned to play Josh Allen a bit more in the preseason. This was all disrupted by weather. Week 1, heavy winds in their Week 1 preseason game. Week 2, rain. And then they just ended up sitting everyone Week 3. Samuel is dealing with a foot injury or turf toe and might not be ready for Week 1. I think the Bills' offense will be fine, though. Bills fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey mid-season last year. Even though the Bills were 3rd in EPA and number 1 in success rate during the time they fired him. New offensive coordinator Joe Brady's offense is much different than Ken Dorsey's offense, but we didn't really see that last season because when Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator, he was still running the Ken Dorsey offense. But this year, we will see the difference. One thing I like about Joe Brady is how he finds creative ways to force the ball into playmakers' hands at the line of scrimmage with different kinds of screens and either bubble screens or slip screens. He tried it a little bit with Diggs a few times last year, but that's not who Diggs is at this point in his career. But Curtis Samuel is exactly that type of guy, and Dalton Kincaid can be used in a variety of different ways, and I think running back James Cook will be used a lot in the passing game too. The last 4 years, Buffalo has been a top 5 in overall offense each year and top 10 in overall defense each of the last 5 years. They've been elite. No question about it, but the big question now is, can they continue this? There's a lot more questions this year than in years past, which is part of the reason why they're lined at 10.5 wins and not 11.5 or 12 like they have been years past. Last season, the Bills' average point spread on all games combined was minus 5.85 points. This season, it's just below 2 points at minus 1.95 points. This has a lot to do with their strength of schedule this season. I have Buffalo playing the 3rd toughest strength of schedule this year. Much different from last year's 6th overall easiest strength of schedule. Last year, Buffalo only faced 5 teams that went over their season win totals. That was tied for fewest in the league. This year, they have 2 brutal stretches on their schedule, starting with weeks 4, 5, and 6 are 3 straight road games: Ravens, Texans, and Jets, who are 3 of the top 6 contenders in the AFC. And that Jets Week 6 road game will be Buffalo's 4th primetime game in just 5 weeks to start the season. skip to after Week 11, the showdown against the Chiefs. The Bills finally get their bye week, but they must face San Fran at home, followed by back-to-back road games, first in LA against the Rams, and then at Detroit, two of the top NFC teams. That second leg of the back-to-back road trip flying across the country and back is even more difficult, considering it occurs in Detroit, who will be coming off extra rest after playing a Thursday night game the week prior. Lastly, and maybe what makes Buffalo's schedule so tough, is that one of the Bills' big advantages every year is playing at home in the brutal weather conditions late in the season. Unfortunately for the Bills, they don't really play a single warm weather team or dome team in Buffalo after Week 9 in the winter months. I don't think Buffalo's off-season roster changes are as bad as some may think. A quarterback like Josh Allen always gives you a chance. He finished third in EPA per play and number one in total rush EPA. His sack avoidance is elite, number one in the league in lowest pressures seen, resulting into sacks. But their schedule is really brutal. They don't get any real chances to take advantage of their home field advantage against teams that you want to play outdoors in the cold and wind late in the season. Plus, the division they're in is tougher now than it has been in years past. I think Buffalo's Super Bowl window has closed officially. I do lean towards under 10.5 wins, or Buffalo to not make the playoffs. You know, if you had to pick one single stat that correlates mostly to winning or most related to losing football games, it's probably turnovers. Buffalo is a team that I cannot see winning the turnover battle in many games. Between the changes on defense, the pass rush and secondary aren't the units you want to be trying to figure out on the fly in today's league. And you have a QB who's as good as Josh is. He threw the second most INTs last year. Josh Allen has 47 INTs in the last 3 seasons, most in the NFL during that span. And also, speaking of turnovers, turnover luck made the Ken Dorsey fire look much better than reality. Under Dorsey as offensive coordinator, the Bills just recovered 1 out of 9 fumbles. But with Brady, when he took over at OC, they recovered 8 out of 10 fumbles. That's a huge difference that has a lot of randomness attached to it. Special teams is a concern here with Buffalo. Field goal kicker Tyler Bass went 8 for 14 in 40-plus yard field goal tries, and can't forget about that 44-yard miss versus KC in the divisional round that potentially cost them the game. It was a problem last year. I'm not sure if they've improved it anywhere. The Bills did get really unlucky with opposing field goal kickers making 93% of their kicks versus Buffalo, which was the third highest rate of made kicks in the league, which includes a miracle 59-yard game-tying kick by Jake Elliott in Philly. Eagles went on to win that game in OT. Bills played just 12 single-score games last season, tied for second most, and they went 6-6 in those games. The Bills' 6 losses all came by 6 points or less. I don't necessarily think we see regression from Buffalo, but I do think regression has already started to happen. Buffalo took some pretty inexplicable losses last season. The Jets won in the home opener, or in the opener, I should say, when Rodgers tore his Achilles. They lost to the Patriots and Broncos last year, too. A player prop angle I really like that I'll be looking at is betting under Josh Allen rushing yards at the start of last season when Ken Dorsey was still the offensive coordinator. They purposely limited Josh Allen's run plays. It's obviously a big part of what makes him great, but they want to keep him healthy for meaningful games later in the year. I think this is going to be the similar plan this season, but come Thanksgiving or December, we'll see Josh Allen as a true dual-threat quarterback and running more, especially when teams go into that deep safety shell look or have less, guys up in the box.